into the ancient and mysterious world of Greek mythology. Wherever you're listening from in the world, I'm glad you're here. Get comfortable, let your thoughts grow quiet, and drift with me to a time before time itself. No sea, no sky. There was only chaos. It was something far older and deeper. A vast, yawning emptiness without shape, sound, or direction. Not evil, not good. Simply endless potential, suspended in silence and eternal. Beneath her opened Tartarus, the abyss so deep it frightened even the newborn universe. And then came Eros, the quiet force of attraction and desire, the invisible thread that would bind all things together and set creation into motion. Foundations of reality itself, living principles given form. So thick, it seemed to swallow the stars before they were even born. At her side appeared Erebus, the shadowed gloom of the underworld. Together, night and darkness brought forth ether, the bright upper air breathed by future gods, and Hemra, the day, destined to chase her mother endlessly across the sky. Science, but through story. A cosmic family painting the heavens with shadow and light. Her own being she shaped Uranus, the sky vast, star-filled, and arching endlessly above her. He was both her child and her partner. When he stretched across her body, the universe took its first recognizable shape. A dome of heaven embracing an endless earth, broken, and Pontus, the restless sea, surging long before ships or sailors ever dreamed of crossing it. And from them came the Titans, 12 immense beings who would rule the cosmos in an age before the Olympian gods. Hyperion, bearer of heavenly light, Cus, the seeker of wisdom, Crius, master of constellations, Iapetus, ancestor of mortal kind, and Cronus, the youngest, clever, patient, and dangerously ambitious. Moon, Rhea, future mother of gods, Themis, guardian of divine order, Mnemosyne, keeper of memory, Phoebe, the shining intellect, and Tethys, the life-giving sea, children of terrifying power. First came the Cyclopes, Brontes, Sterops, and Argus, giants with a single blazing eye set in their foreheads, master smiths who would one day forge thunder itself. Then came the Hecatonchirus, the 100-handed ones, colossal beings with 50 heads and 100 arms each, their strength capable of shaking the foundations of existence. These monstrous children, fear twisted into cruelty, ashamed of their power, he forced them back into Gaia's depths and sealed them within her, burying them beneath layers of stone and silence. The earth groaned under the weight of her imprisoned children. Pain echoed through her vast body, and in that suffering, Gaia began to plan quietly, patiently, the first rebellion of the cosmos. Remember this. In the oldest age, before law or justice, before sword or plow, the world was made not with hands, but with force and union and grief. Chaos birthed the first forms, but it was Gaia, the Great Mother, who gave them ground to stand upon. Was the first great marriage of the cosmos. It was not a marriage of altars or witnesses, but of necessity and nature. The sky stretched over the earth, holding her tightly, pressing her beneath his star-stewed body night after night, but also a deep and growing sorrow. For Uranus, though proud and vast, was a jealous and fearful father. He saw in the monstrous children, Gaia bore not strength, but a threat to his dominion, Vulcan, not wonder, and with swift, cruel judgment, he thrust them back into Gaia's womb, deep into the belly of the earth, where no light reached and no voice could echo, of bearing them within her again. But the betrayal of her consort, of Sky, who should have cherished their children as she did. Night after night, Uranus descended upon her, pressing down the heavens to meet the earth, blind to her pain and deaf to her grief. He fashioned a weapon, not of bronze or iron, for such things had not yet been dreamed, but a great sickle of unyielding flint. She went to her Titan sons, the firstborn and mightiest among her children, and laid bare her suffering. Your father has wronged me, she said. He has caged your brothers. He has silenced the womb that bore you. Who among you will aid me? One by one they turned away. The shrewdest, the one with watchful eyes and a patient heart, stepped forward. I will do it, he said. Give me the descend, as he always did, laying himself across her in the dark. And from the shadows, Cronus sprang. With a steady hand and no hesitation, he brought the sickle down upon his father. The sky shook with Uranus's cry as the blade bit deep, severing the source of his power. Cronus cast the bloodied flesh into the sea, and from the crimson foam that rose upon the waves, something new was born, and Desire, who would later cause kings to fall and empires to burn. She stepped ashore at Cyprus, radiant and serene, untouched by the violence of her origin. But Gaia's vengeance did not end with blood. From the droplets that fell upon the earth sprang other beings, the Furies cloaked in shadow and vengeance, who would haunt oathbreakers and kinslayers until the end of days. Old ways. Uranus, wounded and dethroned, vanished into the heavens, leaving the world to his children. Before he fled, it is said he spoke a final curse, one that would ring through time like a bell. Just as I was overthrown by my son, so too shall he be overthrown by his own. Already whispered, and Cronus heard it well. He took the sky throne and wrapped himself in power. But from the moment thus ended the reign of Uranus, the first king of the cosmos, and began the age of the Titans. Yet already in the womb of time, the next storm was stirring. With Uranus cast down and the sky no longer pressed so tightly upon the earth, the world breathed anew. The Titans, freed from their father's yoke, now stood tall beneath the heavens, and Cronus in over all. He was not a god of chaos or cruelty, as his father had been in the end, but he ruled with a cautious and suspicious heart. The sickle he had used to bring down Uranus remained hidden. It remembered but unseen, like a secret sin. Cronus had delivered his mother from torment and his siblings from imprisonment. Yet from the very moment he sat the throne of the cosmos, his mind was troubled by the prophecy that had driven him to rebellion. The words of his dying father echoed through him like a second heartbeat, that he too took a wife as kings must. He chose Rhea, his sister, a Titaness of gentle strength and deep wisdom. Though her name would one day be spoken in the same breath as pain, although they ruled through a time that later poets would remember as a golden age, a time when mortals, newly created, lived in peace, free from suffering, untouched by winter or war. It was an age before kings had armies, before men built walls or worshipped temples, when justice moved unseen among humankind and no one locked their doors. But such peace, as the world has always known, does not last. In time, Rhea began to bear children, belly like seeds in winter soil. He told Rhea it was necessary, that he would not suffer the same fate as Uranus, that the throne must be protected. Rhea, though proud and strong, was powerless against him. She wept, but her tears changed nothing. 5 times she gave birth, and 5 times she lost her children to the hunger of her husband's fear. But the 6th time she resolved to act. She fled instead to the island of Crete, where the mountains met the sky and deep caves opened beneath the earth. There, hidden among shepherds and nymphs, she gave birth to her youngest son, Zeus, and from the moment of his birth, Rhea knew he was different. His cry shook the trees. Her finger, he held it with the strength of fate itself. To deceive Cronus, Rhea wrapped a stone in swaddling cloth and presented it to, thinking the danger had passed. But beneath Mount Ida, the infant Zeus was nursed in secret. He was guarded by the curate's warriors who danced and clashed their shields to drown out the sound of his cries, and fed by the goat Amalpha, whose milk gave him strength beyond measure. And as Zeus grew, so did the age of Cronus held. The sky was high, the earth was green, and the Titans ruled from their thrones. 5 children stirred in the dark, and far to the west, a child born in secrecy watched the stars and waited. In the hidden folds of Mount Ida, where the air was thin and the wind whispered ancient names through stone and pine, Zeus grew to manhood. Raised in secret, far from his father's gaze, he learned of the high peaks, the rustling of leaves, and the cautious stories, murmured by his guardians in firelight. He drank the milk of the divine goat Imala, who had nourished him from birth, and from her broken horn, torn by accident or omen, was born the died. Zeus hung her hide among the stars in her honor, and her memory became part of the sky he would one day command. But he was not born to stargazing or solitude. The blood in his veins was thick with prophecy, and his bones carried the weight of rebellion. As he came of age, Gaia herself began to for imprisoned sons, the 100-handed ones, and the Cyclopes buried deep in Tartarus. Her vengeance had not ended with Uranus. It had only been delayed. With words as old as stone, she whispered truth into Zeus's dreams. First, she led him to Metis, the Titaness of wisdom, whose counsel was shrewd and whose loyalty leaned toward the future. With Metis' aid, Zeus fashioned a plan to strike against than strength. It would demand cunning. Zeus returned in disguise to the house of his father, and there, with Metis' craft, he offered Cronus a potion laced in wine, bittersweet and thick as honey. The drink stirred the old Titan's gut, and at last, with a shudder and a groan, Cronos vomited forth the children he, but full grown and gleaming, clad in the strength of gods, reborn into a world already poised for war. First Hestia, hearth and flame, then Deita, goddess of the grain, then regal Heraea, proud and sharped, then Hades, lord of the dead, and at last Poseidon, master of the deep. The 6 siblings stood together for the first time as one, and looked to the throne that had cast. Cronus was not without allies. The Titans rallied to him, his brothers and sisters gathering at top Mount Orus, the old seat of power in the south. Oianus remained apart, too old or too wise for blood feuds, but the others Kois, Crius, Hyperion, Iphitus took up arms. So began the war the poets called Titanomachy, the clash of Titans and Olympians. A war that tore across earth. The battle raged without end. The sky darkened with storm and smoke. Thunder and fire echoed across the mountains, and the world below, still young and silent, watched in dread as its masters fought for the right to rule. The Titans held Orus, tall and time-worn, a peak still unscarred by war. The battles were terrible and unrelenting. Lightning tore open the skies, and tidal waves swallowed islands whole. Volcanoes bled fire, and winds howled like wolves. At times, the war seemed endless, neither side able to land the final blow. But Gaia, ever watchful, knew that. She counseled old Zeus once more. If he were to win, he must descend into Tartarus and free his monstrous uncles, had kept locked in chains out of fear. With his siblings beside him, Zeus broke the gates of the underworld and released the imprisoned powers. The Cyclopes, grateful and eager, the symbol of sky and storm. To Poseidon, they gave the trident with which he would command the seas, and to Hades, a helm of darkness that would make him unseen. The Hecatonius giants with 100 hands joined the fight at last, hurling mountains like bound. With these allies, the tide turned. The Olympians pressed forward with a fury no Titan could match. Cronus, proud and unyielding, fought to the last. But the prophecy is always unfolded without mercy. The Titans fell. One by one, they were driven down, cast from the high places of the earth, done before. Deep into Tartarus they were hurled, bound in chains forged by the break. Only a few escaped that fate. Prometheus and Epimetheus, who had sided with the gods, and those who foresaw the justice of their rule. So ended the reign of the Titans. The sky cleared, and the world, scarred by fire and war, began to heal. The throne passed to Zeus, not by birthright. Yet even as he claimed the heavens, the shadow of Cronus' curse lingered behind him, like the echo of an old song. For no ruler, god or mortal, sits secure forever. When the war was over and the world lay quiet beneath the sky once more, the victors stood amidst the rubble of creation. The Titans were chained in the depths of Tartarus, their groans swallowed by that black abyss from which no echo returned. The old order had been broken, perhaps greater than any battle to rule, for conquest may be won with fire and division. The world was wide and wild and filled with powers both known and yet unnamed. It could not be held by one alone. Zeus, eldest among the gods now born again, stood at the center of this new age. Though not the firstborn, he was first in might, first in cunning, and first to move when action was into the bones of the cosmos itself, did not grant him sole dominion. He had 2 brothers, both tempered by, who had driven the sea to foam in his wrath, and Hades, who had worn the helm of darkness and moved unseen through battlefield and cavern alike. They too had shed blood, taken risks, and suffered loss. The throne of the cosmos could not belong to Zeus alone, lest the seeds of war be sown anew, this time among brothers, Hades, and cast lots to divide the realms of the world. Not through bickering or force, but by fate itself. The casting of lots was sacred, guided by the same power that had spoken through Gaia's whispers and shaped the course of the Titanomachy. They threw the bones and waited. When they landed, the world was drawn into 3 great dominions. To Zeus fell, the sky, the broad heavens, the air between stars and peaks. He rode, and the undisputed king of Olympus. His voice would echo in thunderclaps, herald, soaring high above all. To Poseidon fell the sea, deep and restless, full of mystery and monsters. He took the oceans, the rivers, and every spring that bubbled from the earth. With his trident, he could shatter the waves. He built a palace of coral and gold, and there he ruled not only over fish and current, but over creatures older than time. Sea serpents, leviathans, and things whose names had the land of the dead. It was not a prize most would have chosen, but Hades took it with quiet resolve. He ruled the shadowed realm with stern dignity, his kingdom hidden beneath the earth where the sun did not shine, and guardian of wealth hidden in the deeps, gems, metals, and secrets lost to time. Though men feared his name and whispered it only when necessary, Hades broke the laws he was sworn to uphold. The earth itself, Gaia's own flesh, was left as a common realm, shared by all. The mountains belonged to no one. The fields were roamed by mortals and spirits alike, and the forests grew wild under no single banner. It was a realm in between where gods might walk, and where fate would continue to work its quiet will. Thus the world was ordered. Sky, sea, and realms swore not to war among themselves, lest the world break anew. They built their thrones and gathered their followers. On Mount Olympus, high above the clouds, Zeus called the gods to council. There Thrice, Deita whose steps awakened spring, and Hestia ever burning at the hearth of every home. And others came, new and old. Athena born from wisdom and war. Apollo, golden and far-seeing. Artemis, fleet of foot and mind. Hecate, limping but brilliant. And Aphrodite, whose smile could unravel kings. It was the beginning of a new age, the age of Olympus. But though the thrones had been set, and the realms divided, the world, all their power, were not immune to pride, nor love, nor rage. And the mortals who now began to rise across the lands would bring their own stories, their own wars, and their own share of sorrow when God sit the throne. When the smoke of war faded and the world was cast once more in sunlight, Mount Olympus became the seat of a new and glittering court. The Titans had ruled from Mount Orus in the south, harsh, ancient, and wrapped in storm. But Olympus, in the north, stood higher still. It's not merely a place, but a threshold. A place where sky met stone, where the mortal world ended and, having claimed the heavens by fate and force, gathered the new pantheon of gods. The Olympian court did not mirror mortal kingdoms. There were no brick-paved roads leading to its gates, no heralds announcing guests, no armies stationed at its base. The gods needed no walls to guard them. The air itself served as Olympus was said to have no storms, no snow, no decay. Its halls were of marble and cloud, stretched wide enough for wind to wander freely. Here the gods walked, not as shadows or omens, but in full form, radiant, terrible, and more alive than anything that walked the earth below. At the summit of Olympus stood Zeus, king of gods and men, seated upon a throne of thunder. He ruled not by brute strength alone, memory of war. His voice carried like distant thunder. His eyes saw beyond clouds and time, and the symbol of judgment, swift and final. But even he did not rule alone. Around him stood the others, each a pillar in the new order of the world. Gaia sat beside him, not merely as wife, but as queen, sovereign in her childbirth, and the silent fury of a woman wronged. Proud and unyielding, Gaia remembered every slight, and her jealousy would one day shape the fates of gods and mortals. Forged in the fires of betrayal, and bound by the sacred oaths of Olympus, Deita came next, the goddess of grain and growth. Where her feet touched the earth, the soil softened and seeds stirred. Her presence brought harvest and plenty, and without her the fields grew barren. She did not sit high among the thunder and marble, but walked often in the world below, watching over the plowmen and mothers, quieter than many, but none doubted her power. Then there was Hestia, goddess of the hearth, the father's belly. She asked for no temple, no grand myths, no wars or lovers. She tended the eternal flame in the center of Olympus, and watched over every home and hearth on earth. Her power was gentle but ever present, for as long as fire burned in a household, Hestia lived there too. The younger gods came in time, some born in Olympus, others delivered by strange but of wisdom. When Zeus swallowed Metis, fearing her unborn child would surpass him, he thought the matter ended. But Metis did not die. She lived within him, whispering, scheming, crafting knowledge in the dark. One day, Zeus groaned in agony, and with a blow to his skull, Athena sprang forth, her eyes clear and sharp as flint. She became goddess of wisdom, strategy, and just war. A virgin warrior with no came next. Twins born of Leto, a titaness who wandered long and weary to find a place to give birth. No land dared offer her sanctuary, for Here's wrath was vast and vengeful. At last the floating island of Das accepted her, and there she bore her children. Apollo, golden-haired and bright, became the god of light. Prophecy, swift and silver, was goddess of the hunt, of wild things and moonlight. Together they marked a new generation, the mortal world. Then came Ares, god of war and slaughter, son of Zeus and Hera, but beloved by neither. He was strength without discipline, rage without cause, and though his name was feared, he was not often honored. War followed him like a shadow, and he gloried in its chaos, but he was often bested by the lame god of the forge, master of craft and flame. Born of Hera alone, or thrown from Olympus by Zeus, both tales are told. He, fire. From his hands came armor, palaces, and automatons. Though limping and twisted, he was among the most indispensable of the gods. Aphrodite, goddess of beauty and desire, arrived not by birth, but by foam. Born of Uranus's severed flesh cast into the sea, she rose from the surf at Cyprus, as beautiful as jealousy and ruin followed her wherever she went. Even Zeus could not command her fully. She bound gods and mortals alike, with a consequence. Hermes, the trickster and herald, came last of this early court, son of Zeus and the nymph Maia. He moved swiftly between worlds, winged sandals at his feet, and a mischievous grin on his lips. He stole Apollo's cattle on the day of his birth, sang a song to cover the theft, and made himself messenger of the gods, guide of souls, patron of thieves and travelers. Where Hermes went, borders,